Hello, this is Luminousz Star. Welcome to the channel. Everyone who are current stars, thank you for your subscription. Thank you for motivating me and inspiring me to keep this channel active. Everyone who is visiting for the first time, welcome to Luminousz Star. Become a Star family member by hitting that subscription button below. We would love to have you a part of our family and our community, which is growing rapidly. I love it. Okay, so welcome to the Luminous Star channel. Today's video, the Star Series number 6. This is where I answer your emails. And I really appreciate all of you reaching out to me. And thank you for your patience with my responding to your emails. All right, let's jump right in. With the first question, let's get on to the first question. All right, from Arizona, she says, I've been married to a narc for decades now, only learning what this was a few years ago. Financially, I'm not able to get free. My mom also is one. I fell in love here on YouTube quite by accident with a man in England a couple of years ago. Should I feel guilty about this? Well, Arizona, thank you so much for the question, my dear. And no, I don't think you should feel guilty. Guilt is something that naturally happens to us. Now, there's a thing called guilty complex, and there's a thing called a guilty conscious. The key word in the guilty conscious is conscious. First, one has to have a conscious in order to feel guilty at all, or a healthy sense of guilt, all right, which is probably what you're feeling. A guilty complex is one who does not deal with their guilt. They tend to put up a wall, or they're very defensive. They have a guilty complex. The key word in guilty complex is complex. It's very complex. So they tend not to feel guilt because they may have done something wrong, or they feel they've done something shameful, right? And they have a defense mechanism. They're putting up a wall about it. They don't want to deal with it. So they tend to project their guilt onto others, which is called guilt tripping. But I think your guilt is stemming from a grooming process that may have taken place. Okay, it's called codependency, or behaving codependently. The narcissist and customer personality, they tend to groom others to behave codependently. Therefore, they tend to start feeling guilty, and they may ask, should I feel guilty? Now, I didn't say all that to scold you, Arizona. I'm just sharing how sometimes we fall into that trap when we do things that maybe we have made mistakes, maybe we have made poor choices, and then we just, can't seem to get past that we made those mistakes. But no, I don't think that you should feel guilty about this. Now, the financial part, I want to point out that a lot of cluster B personalities and a lot of narcissistic personalities, what they tend to do with their romantic partners is they will financially abuse him or her. Now, I don't know if that's your situation. I read here that financially you are not able to get free. So I don't know if it's because the narcissist or the customer personality has been financially misusing you or not. I don't know, but I just saw that word financially, and it kind of jumped out at me. So I wanted to mention that. If that is the case, Arizona, I want to go ahead and suggest that you research financial abuse by a narcissist, and then look up some of the tips and tools that you can start using today to get yourself out of that. There is one I can share with you, and that is increase your knowledge on finances, or become more financially literate. That sometimes there are seminars that don't cost a lot of money. We can go online and we can do a lot of research, or we can go to the library and look up, materials and books on this subject. But there's a lot of empowering ways that we can turn all that around. So Arizona, I wish you the very best. Thank you again for the question. And I certainly hope that my answer was satisfactory. Question number 2 from Miss Terry. Can you please speak on the original father having molested the daughter during childhood and still has a grasp on her in adulthood? She basically is protecting him at all costs. Thank you for the question, Miss Terry. And this is a very deep one. Absolutely. This is something that happens a lot. Some daughters are molested by their fathers, with whether that's a biological father or a stepfather. And sometimes, to make things a little bit grimmer, okay, is the mothers they don't protect the daughter. Sometimes the daughter is in a household whereas she has been sexually molested by the father, and the mother may have a narcissistic or a custody personality. She may be a covert narcissist. That means a person who quietly and secretly abuses another. And they know that, they're masterminds at covering their tracks. Okay, so some daughters actually experience this. So original father, now you put this in quotes, I'm assuming, well, I don't want to assume, so I'm thinking that you mean the biological father, not like a stepdad. So the biological father, which has molested the daughter during childhood, she still is protecting him at all costs. That is due to codependency, being groomed or instilled in her. She has been groomed by the father, more than likely, and sometimes it could be the mother as well. Both parents of this daughter may have a custody personality and or a narcissistic personality, but I don't know that based on this question. So the original father, he has molested the daughter during childhood, and he still has a grasp on her in adulthood. This is also common because, again, it is the grooming process. A lot of fathers who have molested their daughters, not all of them, a lot of them, they do groom the daughter. A lot of them, they groom the daughter in so many ways, not just, and I'm not trying to sound gross when I say this, but not just sexually. However, the father is sexually grooming the daughter. So that way he can continue to obtain supply from her well into her adulthood. This is very common, and it is very unfortunate, in my opinion. This happens all too often. So the biological father does tend to have a hold on the daughter or have some influence, I'll put it that way. So the biological father that molests their daughters, they do tend to still have a lot of influence in their daughters' lives well into their adulthood. Very sad thing, but often the case when this is the situation. And she does, due to reflex, because of the grooming process that she had undergone when she was a child. Part of the grooming is that she was sexually molested. So she is going to protect him at all costs. And unfortunately, it will be to his benefit and to her detriment. This is often the case. Thank you for the question, Ms. Terry, and I certainly hope my answer is satisfactory. Question number 3. When the narc figures that you are not prime, as he discards you, will he still stalk and hoover? Or is there not a reason at this point? Well, thank you, Ms. Zoe Coleman, for the question. And when a narc figures that you are not prime, yes, he does discard you. Now, sometimes he will or she will stalk and hover. Now, I keep saying hover before the hoovering because I call that the 1-2 punch. Let me break that down for everyone watching. The hovering process is when that person's presence is still felt in your life. The narcissist and the custody personality, their energy, their presence is still felt in your life. It's overshadowing your life. They tend their energy and their spirit tends to linger or hover over your life like a ghost, like a presence, because they're physically not in a relationship with you. Yet it is as if they are, because their energy and their spirits are still felt. So when that happens, this is the hovering process. That's the first punch. What deepens the hovering process is that sometimes the narcissist and the custody personality is brought up in a conversation that you may be having with a flying monkey that has been recruited by the narcissist or the cluster personality, sometimes unbeknownst to you. So you may be having a conversation with the flying monkey or an enabler that has been recruited by the narcissist. So they can gather the information that you share about your life, and they're going to report it back to the narcissist. So that is the hovering process. That's the hovering. That's the first punch. The second punch is the hoovering that happens, because usually the hovering is first. Then there's the hoovering. A lot of people overlook the hovering process. Then the hoovering happens. They suck you back in. But all the while, they have been building up to the moment that you return to the relationship, because they set it up that way. The narcissist does the 1-2 punch. The hovering and then the hoovering. And all of that, yes, they can be stalking the whole time, but the stalking is the hovering, not the hoovering. So they will, even though they discard, they still will plan to have you come back to resupply him or her. So once they figure out you're not prying, that does not necessarily mean that they're going to not attempt to get supply from you in the near future or in the far future. It could be 10 years later, and they will size you up to see if they can get any supply from you. Especially if they have gotten supply from you before. If they have determined before that you're not prying and they discard you, they will not necessarily look to get supply from you again. It can go either way. It depends on the situation. A lot of times, though, what happens is that the narcissist and cluster personality, they will not pass up an opportunity to be supplied. So he or she may deem you as not prime for source supply right now, and they may discard you right now. That does not mean that a little bit later down the road, they will not seek you out again. However, once you practice self-preservation, you practice assertion, you practice emotional discipline, you practice self-preservation and personal boundaries. There's 4 things: personal boundaries, self-preservation, assertion, and emotional discipline. That is a narcissist repellent. If you're practicing that when he or she may come sniffing around again to see if they can get supply from you, after they have already discarded you, after they've already deemed you're not prime, guess what? You will continue to be able to keep them at bay, because you're practicing something called the narcissist repellent. Personal boundaries, self-preservation, assertion, and emotional discipline. The narcissist cannot tap into the energy field of anyone who practices such things. Great questions, though, and I hope my long, drawn-out answer was quite satisfactory. Question number 4. Can narcissistic people use religion to manipulate their victims? If so, what are some examples? Thank you, Amanda, for the question. Narcissistic people do use religion to manipulate their victims. An example is they may go to church. Okay, they may go to the synagogue. And I want everyone to know right now that I am not advocating any type of religion, nor am I smearing any type of religion. Okay, now back to the question and answer. Let's just say the narcissist or the cluster personality attends church, or they attend the synagogue, or wherever they may practice their religion. Okay, and they engage in the doctrine. They may use the doctrine in order to justify obtaining source supply from a source supplier or a targeted prey. So this is not actually an isolated case or an isolated experience. Many people have experienced this, whereas the narcissist, they would use their religion and maybe the doctrine that is a part of that religion to justify obtaining source supply from others. Okay, and again, the key word is manipulate. They will manipulate people emotionally, financially, in order to do so. They will manipulate. There's no shame when it comes to the narcissist and cluster personality obtaining source supply, because they are loyal. This is very ironic. And what's ironic is that even though some narcissists and some cluster B personalities have a particular religion that they study the doctrine of and that they actually practice, yet they're loyal to their false self-image. So it's almost like they worship their false self-image because they're extremely loyal to their false self-image. Yet they have a religion that they practice, and they study the doctrine of that religion, and they will use it in order to obtain source supply. Very fascinating. But again, this is not an isolated incident, and this is a this is an incident that a lot of people have experienced. Thank you, Amanda, for your question, and I certainly hope my answer was satisfactory. Question number 5. How do I know what my personal boundaries are? With all the tricks and fog, where do I put the lines? Does it seem like they don't mean to do this on purpose? I'm just realizing all of this at 35, and it feels like a crisis. I'm too sensitive. I really appreciate your videos. They are opening my eyes. I need more tools to get through this, and I love the ones you provide. Do you have positive affirmations we can use? How do we stop being emotionally available to a parent? Okay, so this is a very loaded question. Thank you so much, Paige. And I certainly hope my answer is satisfactory. So first off, the boundaries. How do you know what your personal boundaries are? Well, simply tap into your own energy field. I know that might sound silly, but the way you tap into your own energy field is to pay attention to how you feel when any given situation or challenge comes up for you. How do you tend to handle adversity? How do you tend to resolve or problem solve any challenges you may face? How do you tend to do relationships? This is how you know what your personal boundaries are. Are you the person who gives more and you don't get exactly what you need in the relationship? Not even close. You don't get your needs met. You don't have your desires met. Are you that person? This will give you a clue of what your personal boundaries are. One purpose of a personal boundary is to keep you empowered. Your own personal power. That keeps you grounded. That keeps you centered, not self-centered, not selfish in a negative way. It keeps you grounded and centered. Another purpose is to respect your personal space. Respecting your own space, whether that be your home that you live in, your personal space. Whereas when you're talking to somebody, if they're stepping in and they're too close up on you, you feel uncomfortable. That's your personal space. So personal boundaries go all into that. It's not just physical boundaries, such as your personal space. It's emotional boundaries. When someone is saying something to you and it hurts, you're angry, you may feel sad, and you express this to the person with tact. You use tact. You're not attacking them. You explain. Well, not really explain, but you share with the person. You express that the words that they're using are hurtful. That's a personal boundary. When you respect yourself enough, you tap into your own energy field. You know how you feel. You know what you're thinking. And you express that effectively to another person. In other words, using effective communication. You know how to assert yourself and let that person know with tact, with grace. Hey, this hurts. When you use those words, that hurts. That's a personal boundary. That's how you know where your personal boundaries are. Is what you are willing to tolerate, what you're willing to experience in your life from others, not just yourself, from others. Personal boundaries. Some people have low personal boundaries, or they lack personal boundaries when they're in a dysfunctional relationship with somebody. because that person doesn't care about his or her desires or needs. That's a dysfunctional relationship. Somebody's doing more giving and they're not receiving what they need in the relationship in order to be happy or to feel joy. It's not about putting anybody else to the task of making you happy. No. Well, basically, it's about you feeling enough joy to share that with somebody. So personal boundaries, yeah, it's very important to find out what your personal boundaries are. And that's how you can find out. Tap into your own energy field. Look at where you are in your healing. Look at how you handle relationships. Look at how you handle issues. How do you handle adversity and challenges? How do you tend to do relationships? Again, are you the person left holding the bag a lot? That tends to be a person who lacks personal boundaries. So with all the tricks and fall, in other words, my favorite word, shenanigans. With all of the shenanigans, where do you draw the line? Okay, personal boundaries. Practice personal boundaries. That's how you draw the line. You learn how to practice personal boundaries. And along with that, what makes up a narcissist? Repellent. Assertion that goes along with the personal boundaries. Emotional discipline that goes along with the personal boundaries. And self-preservation. And voila, those 4 things is a narcissist repellent. That's how you can draw the line. That's how you keep narcissists and cluster personalities at bay. If you cannot physically leave the relationship, you still keep them at bay. So as far as like the affirmations, well, part of the affirmations are in the tools and the critical questions that I share. So sure, those are the positive affirmations that I do share with others. And I hope that you certainly continue to use and find of some resource. And how do you stop being emotionally available to a parent? Well, first of all, congratulate yourself for getting through what you have gone through. And you're still here. Okay? First, congratulate yourself. Celebrate. Pat yourself on the back. And remember, you parented your parent. That's not something you were supposed to do, but you did it and you're still here. So now it's time for you to parent yourself. That's how you stop becoming emotionally available to a parent. You simply practice the narcissist repellent that we just talked about. Assertion. It's going to take a little time, but you can do it. Okay? Assertion, personal boundaries, emotional discipline, and self-preservation. Start doing those things, and Paige, I can almost guarantee you, you're going to see some results. Okay? Again, great question, Paige, and I certainly hope my answer was satisfactory. Question number 6. How do you get the abuse to stop? You say to stop being emotionally invested. It's trying to get a restraining order, still being emotionally invested. I just want it to stop and don't know any other way to protect myself other than seeking legal protection. Every time I see a sign of this person in the environment, it upsets me. Okay, so Ashley, thank you so much for your question. Great question. I certainly hope my answer is satisfactory. So here we go. How do you get the abuse to stop? Well, we cannot control other people. But what we can do is control ourselves. We do not have to be available. We do not have to show up. We don't have to comply to the relationship. It's a mind game. The narcissist and the cluster personality, they like to play the mind game and have us stuck in codependency. A person who behaves codependent, a person who behaves codependently is a person who places everybody's needs and desires before his or her own. The narcissist wants you to stay there. The narcissist wants you to continue to be overly dependent upon him or her. Over dependence is codependency. So it's trying to get a restraining order being emotionally invested. No, it's not. That is you taking radical action and choosing to empower yourself. That's what your emotions really have nothing to do with it. once you have made the choice, should you make the choice to obtain a restraining order, that is your taking radical action, and usually that action has been followed by critical thinking and not being in your feelings or in your emotions or in your ego. It's critical thinking. Okay, so this is very good. So if you obtain a restraining order, I just want to suggest, if you haven't already, please find out what the laws are in your jurisdiction, because they vary from place to place or jurisdiction to jurisdiction. The restraining order is not the same. The laws surrounding and policy surrounding a restraining order vary from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. Please do your homework. Okay, so again, Ashley, great question, and I certainly hope that my answer was satisfactory. From one who knows their path, question number 7. I do have a question. Is cluster B personalities born that way versus groomed, or both? I remember someone said she was mean even as a child. Could she have been born that way? Okay, again, great question. One who knows their path. I certainly hope that my answer is satisfactory. So here we go. Cluster B personalities, are they born that way versus being groomed, or is it a combination of both? Narcissists and cluster B personality parents tend to groom their children to either become those who behave codependently or to develop a cluster B personality or a narcissistic personality. Now, the two things that I think some people overlook, but I'm going to go ahead and point out, is that when a person, when the cluster B personality is grooming a child, the child either is going to develop, that's a key word, develop, the cluster B personality and or the narcissistic personality. The other side of that grooming process is that the child may behave, that's a key word, behave, rather than develop. They may behave codependently, so you don't develop becoming a codependent. See, there's a difference, and I really wanted to point that out to actually make another point. So when you're looking at a person, such as this person here who said she was mean even as a child because she had been born that way, I'm going to say no. 9 times out of 10 chances she was not born that way. She was groomed to behave in that manner. Now, is that part of her personality? Possibly, because she developed a particular personality due to the grooming process. Parents have a lot of influence over their children, and I know a lot of people know this. So when they groom a child, so when the narcissist, say for instance the narcissist is grooming the child to either behave codependently or to develop a personality disorder, such as a cluster B personality or a narcissistic personality. Either way, that parent is looking to obtain a lifelong source supply. But getting back to this person here who stated that she was mean even as a child, and you're wondering, was she born that way? No, more than likely she was not. However, it is very possible that she was groomed to behave in that manner. This could be due to her developing a cluster B personality or a narcissistic personality. And it could also mean that that is her acting out being in a household with a cluster B personality parent or a narcissistic personality parent. She may have been treated a particular way, and that was her acting out, her being mean. I'm not condoning it. I'm not advocating it. I'm just pointing out how some children actually act out when they are in a dysfunctional family. They tend to act out. By the time they're adolescents, you really see them acting out, such as being promiscuous, maybe being on drugs, maybe becoming an alcoholic. So this is a great question, but there's a whole lot of information that I don't have. So I'm going to just go ahead and leave that as my answer. I don't think that this person was born that way. However, it is very possible that she was groomed to behave a certain way. In conjunction to that, she could have been acting out when she was a child. She could have been acting out to the environment of being in a dysfunctional family. So therefore, she tended to be a mean-spirited person. See, a lot of things are going on here. So again, I certainly hope that my answer was satisfactory. Great question again, one who knows their path. Thank you again for the question. Question number 8. Thank you, Luminousz Star. I'm unclear what you mean by claim the narcissist. Do you mean when someone says my ex-narc or my narc, referencing them or even talking about them? Or even talking about them. Thank you, Della, for the question. Great question. Here's my answer, and I certainly hope it is satisfactory. When I say claiming the narcissist, what I am referring to is complying to the dysfunctional relationship. Say the dysfunctional relationship is over. If you're still claiming the narcissist, that means that you are still complying to what happened or what occurred in the relationship that was dysfunctional. This means you co-sign how they mistreated you. So when you claim the narcissist, this is what I'm referring to. What happens when a person claims? That means they're co-signing. That means they are agreeing. That's a part of claiming something. So whenever somebody claims the narcissist, this is what's happening. They are co-signing and they are still in compliance. In other words, they are in agreement with how the narcissist has treated him or her. So that's what I refer to. So somebody may say, and I've heard this many times, they would refer to their narcissist. They will say that, my narcissist. So for me, that's something that, I don't do because I don't claim the cluster B personality. In my case, it was a cluster B personality. Okay, actually, it was several cluster B personalities. I don't claim them because I don't co-sign and I don't agree, nor do I comply to being misused or mistreated by those individuals. So I no longer claim them. When I was in the relationship, it was evident that I claimed him or her because I was agreeing or I was in compliance to the dysfunctional relationship. That means the person is still claiming, they're still agreeing to the dysfunction that happened in the relationship. Even though the relationship may have been over 5 years ago, a year ago, 6 months ago, it doesn't even matter. The bottom line is when a person claims something, they're co-signing, they're in agreement with it, or them, or him or her. The claim can be a thing or a place. It doesn't have to be a person. However, when I hear somebody claim the narcissist, that's how I tend to see it. They're still co-signing. They're still in agreement. And they are still complying, even on an energetic level. The narcissist may not be around them anymore physically. The narcissist may have, they may have been no contact with the narcissist. Yet, on an energetic level, on a spiritual level, on an emotional level, they still claim the narcissist. So therefore, there's still a co-signing going on. There's still an agreement. There's still a connection. It's just on a different level. Certainly hope that my answer was satisfactory. All right, thank you again, Della, for the question. Okay, question number 9. As I write this question is from Michaela. Thank you for the question, Michaela, and I certainly hope my answer is satisfactory. She goes on to say, as I write this, I am in tears, knowing that I don't need closure from him, but I so badly want revenge. Okay, that's all right. I think most people are with you on that one. It's natural to want some revenge. Okay, so I want everyone to know exactly what he is so no other women on this planet get hurt as much as I was by him. I don't wish this kind of abuse and torture and pain on anyone. It's horrible. How do you get past wanting revenge? I left his behind in a blaze of glory. Okay? I brought my own home and was gone. Why isn't that enough? Well, Michaela, again, thank you for the question. So here's my answer. It's natural, I don't condone it, it's natural to want revenge. You have to think about what you've gone through. How did you feel about it? Or how do you still feel? Hurt, angry, okay? Yeah, all these things, this is natural. Someone has hurt you. So, of course, you want revenge. That's natural. So don't beat yourself up for that. Now, as far as like when you have physically moved on, this is something that I touched on in some of my videos. How important it is to clear the toxic energy from that relationship with the narcissist and cluster personality. A lot of us miss this step as we go through life and we go from one relationship to another, or when we build more relationships, we tend to forget to clear the toxic energy if there was any toxic energy. We forget to clear the toxic energy from the previous relationships. When it comes to the narcissist and cluster personality, it is imperative to clear the toxic energy, or it will continue to overshadow our lives. So we may go to make more money, for instance. We may go to get into another romantic relationship. We may move forward with our careers. We may move forward and obtain higher education. We may move forward and obtain more wealth. Our health may become better. Yet it's still suffering a little bit because emotionally we're still hurting from that relationship with the narcissist and cluster personality. Why? Because we haven't cleared the energy. There's a toxic energy. Therefore, once it's cleared, we probably won't feel like it's not enough. But the reason why now you may feel like it's not enough is because, again, the toxic energy has not been released. It hasn't been cleared. What's one way that you can clear the toxic energy? That is to accept that the relationship took place and that you cannot change him or her. We cannot change other people. We are not responsible for the choices other people make. We're not responsible for their emotional state. Now, of course, I'm excluding children that we may be responsible for. I'm speaking of, other adults that we may have relationships with. We're not responsible, yet we, due to being groomed to behave codependently, we take on too many things of the other person. This is why, more than likely, you feel like it's not enough. No matter what you do physically, see, the key word is physically. What are you doing energetically or emotionally or spiritually, for that matter? That's where it is. That's how you start, you have to clear that energy. This is where you can start to clear the toxic energy. First, accept that the relationship happened and that there was nothing you can do to change that person. As amazing as I'm certain you were in the relationship. Not saying that we don't make mistakes. I'm just saying you shared the relationship with this person. So as amazing and beautiful as you were, that person still behaved a particular way. How is that your fault? It is not. So clear that energy by first accepting the fact that you did your best in that relationship. There was nothing that you could do to change that person or make them see what you saw and make them feel what you feel. That it's just, it doesn't work that way for any of us. So that is one way to clear the toxic energy, is to accept and take off the rose-colored glasses and don't idealize that narcissist anymore. And do not idealize the relationship you had with him or her. You can also journal. Write an angry letter. And then after you write the angry letter, bury it or burn it or what have you. Just have a little memorial service. This will also clear that toxic energy and release it. Everything you ever wanted to say to that person, take a recorder and actually say it. Give yourself permission to grieve. That's another way to clear toxic energy. If you still have a picture of the person, you can add that to your memorial service. This is a private memorial service of one. Okay? And so there are so many creative ways I'm quite certain you can come up with to clear that energy. And please do your research on how to clear and release toxic energy. Okay? There's so many books on this subject. There's so much information on the internet about this subject. So great question, Michaela, and I wish you the very best. Okay? Thank you for the question again. All right, question number 10 from Sandra. Sandra, thank you for the question. I certainly hope my answer is satisfactory. Sandra goes on to say, if like attracts like, this means I'm a narcissist too? Please assist. I have a few narcs in my life, including family members, and I'm getting estranged from them all. Okay, Sandra, thank you again for the question. Here's the answer. If like attracts like. Okay, so basically this is what we're taught. However, when it comes to the narcissist and cluster personality, you already know that you're not a narcissist because you're very concerned. That is one clue that you are not a narcissist. When you are concerned about the quality of the relationship, and when you are concerned about how you feel as well as others. Okay, that right there, that's a dead giveaway that you are not a narcissist, because the narcissist does not have such clarifying moments. They don't have moments. Let me put it like this. When the narcissist has moments of clarity, they tend to ignore. You know, the narcissist is like a person that's being shown some clues, and in the face of those clues, he or she arrogantly says, I don't need those. Take them away. Okay, so the rest of us who don't have a narcissistic personality or a cluster personality, we tend to, when we have those moments of clarity, we pay attention. Sometimes we don't, but usually we get around to paying attention. The narcissist and the cluster personality, they lack foresight. They don't tend to learn from their mistakes. So even if they're bashed over the head or they're smacked in the face with a clue, they tend to dismiss it defiantly. That's them being in a state of resistance. They have a fixed personality. The narcissistic personality disorder is a fixed personality. So as far as like you being a narcissist, no, you're not, because you're very concerned. So pat yourself on the back, congratulate yourself for continuing to have the capacity to have empathy and sympathy and love for others. All right, so Sandra goes on to say that she has narcs in her family. Okay, so being that you have narcissists in your family, first of all, my heart goes out to you. I feel compassion for you. So it seems like from your comment here, not just your question, but your comment, that you are going no contact from the family members who have a narcissistic personality or cluster personality. So I want to say congratulations to you, because a lot of people, they get to the point where they find that it is best to go no contact. They go low contact first, which I find nothing wrong with that, because some people have to gradually get into going no contact. They have to graduate to no contact. They go low contact first, and then they graduate to no contact. So I don't judge that at all. A lot of people have to go that route. So if you are going no contact, Sandra, again, I congratulate you, because you probably can see a little, more clearly. After you do that, certain things may become a little bit more clearer to you. Certain things may be put into perspective for you. So the vibration that you're operating on may be attracting the cluster B personality and the narcissist. And it's because of the vibration that you're operating on. What is that vibration? You're a person who may be behaving codependently. You tend to be the nurturer. You tend to be the person who gives more in the relationship and get left holding the bag. People don't tend to fulfill your needs or your desires in a relationship. So you may be behaving codependently, and I say that with love. This is one that a lot of us do. When we are existing on a particular vibration, it is very hard or very difficult to see that this is why we are attracting the cluster B personality and the narcissist. That is because we are functioning on a particular vibration. Therefore, we may be a vibrational match to the narcissist and cluster personality. This does not make us a narcissist or one who has a cluster personality. I hope that makes sense. So it's like the narcissists, they tend to gravitate towards those who they can be overly dependent upon for source supply. The narcissists, they're on the opposite side of the same codependent spectrum as an empath. And the best way for you to continue to supply him or her is to continue to be compliant to the dysfunctional relationship. So you're not attracting the narcissist because you're a narcissist. No, you tend to attract the narcissist because you're still vibrating and you're still functioning particular vibration that allows the narcissist space. This is how you can turn that around or begin turning that around. Practice self-preservation, assertion, emotional discipline, and practice personal boundaries. That is a narcissist repellent. So Sandra, get yourself some narcissist repellent, okay? And that will probably begin to turn that around for you. I want to thank everybody for joining me today or tonight, wherever you may be. I'm Luminousz. Stay tuned for more videos.